So welcome everybody to tonight's webinar with the wonderful Terryann. We are here for the third in the 2020 series of webinars, and we may have another one up our sleeves. Ooh. Seeing as the madness going on in the world at the moment, I hope you're all safe and well, but with all of everything going on, we don't know that Terryann's going to be able to come over for BreakThrough in the UK in June. So we may have to start planning, which means we can have another webinar because, hey, we'll have time. So welcome if you're live with us. Welcome if you are listening to this on the recording. And I haven't even checked the chat. There's nothing in there. So you got something you want to open with, Terryann, today? Do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. I guess we're all quarantined. This is an interesting bit of history, right? On lockdown, on sanctions, on I don't know what to call it. But
house arrest.
That could be. But I hope everyone's well and not too panicky.
Well, I've been looking forward to connecting with you this evening. I was wondering if we could look at something around like exploding internally with everyone on lockdown. I just wondered if that might be something to look at.
Yeah, I was thinking about reactions versus overreactions before I got on, and I thought, oh, that might be something that we could review a little bit and see whether we know the difference. Most people don't. This process, I mean, breakthrough is a shift in perspective on conflict. So to be able to have a different perspective, we need to examine the ways in which we think, the ways in which we, not analysis, right? The thoughts that we have, basically, and our behaviors and our wounds from childhood can all come together in one fell swoop. When somebody pushes our button and we're triggered, we just, usually we call an overreaction. People don't like to hear that. And oftentimes I'll hear people say, oh, but I don't overreact. And you know, I think, oh, here it comes, right? Just because I don't yell or scream, it's not an overreaction. So, okay, so we'll call it an underreaction. I haven't discussed this a lot with the founder, Esther, but, you know, just to me, it doesn't seem like, you know, an underreaction really describes the internal conflict we can go through even though we're not screaming. Right? Oftentimes, I think this perception of an underreaction is actually worse than an overreaction. Of course, we say that an overreaction, you know, which one's a little bit better for you? Well, an overreaction is about this much better for you because you kind of get something out, but doesn't really change anything. So there's a whole bunch of thinking that we have, you know, all of this. Positive and negative, good and bad, and
right,
judgments we make, right and wrong. And of course, the Shakespearean quote, nothing is good or bad, only thinking it makes it so. And oftentimes you can think, well, is that true or not? Well, it's a good idea to look at it, because if we look at an overreaction as an indicator of some internal wound, and in breakthrough we call that wound an identity, something we did not want to live into when we were kids. So, you know, if you're called stupid over and over again, you may or may not believe you're stupid. Somebody called stupid over and over again, you know, it's not the best way to explain it, but I like the imagery. The little kids called stupid over and over again, they may later on in life, you know, prove that they are smart by having degrees and whatnot. Or someone could be called stupid and actually live into, yeah, I am stupid. Now, why would we do such a thing? Well, number one, every identity, well, every concept has a positive and negative. Every concept has a, so war, the only way we know war is through peace. To know peace, we know war or conflict. So every concept has its opposite, right? So the moment we see this polarized thinking, right, we start to realize that, oh, if I have an identity that I reject, that I don't want to be, that I don't want to experience, I'm going to be, sorry.
Going to be sneezing.
Sorry about that. I'm going to be catalyzed the moment someone presses that button, right? So it could be anything. I often look at how we're looking at the world, we hear what people say, we see facial expressions. Don't forget, when you're a child, you see certain facial expressions from your parents, and those facial expressions can indicate something for you to do or not do. Like a dirty look, for example, would denote, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And then you meet absolute strangers and you receive that look. Yeah, it might not even be that intense. It might be an eye lift. It's so interesting. I tend to do this when I'm concentrating and look through my eyebrows, and people find that quite intense. But I'm thinking, I'm mulling things over and figuring. I have no idea how I look. I mean, I'm not looking in the mirror. I'm just in my own.
I used to get told off when I first started clinic because apparently I looked too intense when I was thinking in sessions.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's indicative of a trigger, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because my niece does the same thing. She heard me say something and you could see she was going through a thought process, and I went, "Ooh, that does look kind of scary." Okay, I see what people are talking about. But it would be clear if we were in a, if we are not triggered, we would look at someone and say, what's going on with you? We wouldn't take things personally, right? So that's what we do. We take things personally, but can you actually help that? Well, if I have a wound from childhood, I have this belief, I've identified with an aspect. So I'm good or I'm bad. I'm nice or I'm mean, right? So you identify with one of those things, and you'll only identify with one. Or you're not identified with either, which means you wouldn't have a trigger, but you would be identified with one. And the other one would have gone into the unconscious when you were little. So it's really 0 to 4. We have undifferentiated consciousness. So that means, if you know your psychology a little bit, it's, the child doesn't have an I or you. There's so many different ways of seeing this. BreakThrough would say, well, the consciousness is not differentiated, so everything goes into the child. So yeah, that could be really good, right? If everything goes in, they have an intense learning period. They learn languages, they learn all kinds of things. But also what goes in are identities. And usually it's what we don't want to be. So if I don't want to be stupid, I look at my environment, all of the input as a little kid, and I start to see things that I don't want to be. There'll be conditioning. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And slowly an identity goes in, and I think that I am stupid. By 4 years old, the consciousness differentiates, and now I think I'm stupid. So if the opposite identity is I am smart, right? Well, not if it is. Well, you can answer for yourself. Obviously, the I am smart identity would go into the unconscious. Or, you see a lot of young people Not all of them, I mean, obviously not, but a lot of young people, you see beautiful teenage girl, absolutely gorgeous, and she will say, I am so ugly, I am so horrible. Well, the identity of I am beautiful has gone into the unconscious, and they need to live into the I am ugly. Now, most people at this point ask, why would you do that? Why would that even happen? Well, if you just slow down your thinking for a moment and you see, if someone is beautiful, there could be a heavy burden laid on them. That the expectation of being beautiful all the time. It could be nice. You're so nice, you're so kind. I can always rely on you, Eloise. I can always depend on you. You're always so nice to everyone. And you might get charged up, right? And start feeling the burden of that.
Yeah.
So identities all have a burden, whether they're positive or negative. So the only thing you need to think about is which identity is harder to live into, the positive or the negative. So you just think for a moment, can I stand up and say, well, I'm an adequate speaker, I'm adequate at breakthrough, I'm okay at it. Sometimes I'm really stupid and, I'm running a business, but, I make lots of mistakes and I'm an incompetent in so many ways. Is that easier? Or I'm the best business person you'll ever meet. I'm absolutely perfect at everything I do. I'm wonderful and I'm gorgeous and I'm this and I'm, which is easier or harder to live into? Now, doesn't mean for everyone, but most people will say that the positive identity is harder to live into. So when you consider that for a moment, you would consider that the child would experience that. What are the reasons for it? You can just feel into it. That's what I like to do, is feel into it. If someone is giving me the identity like you're stupid, it could cause offense. It could be like, don't say that to me. Or you could go into, oh my God, you're so amazing. You're the best. I can always rely, which then gives me a heavy feeling. And again, that is just my experience. You can do that for yourself and see what the experience would be like for you. Just a little way of looking at things. Then, here these identities go into our unconscious. We don't want to see them. We don't want to live into them. And don't forget, you can have two identities that are opposing, like let's say good and bad. You might say, I don't really care, which I doubt, but usually good girl, bad boy are huge. Good girl, bad boy, good girl are huge identities that can cover many, right? Because each identity, like stupid, smart, beautiful, they go under good and bad. So I would doubt it that would be one of them. But I'm capable, I'm incapable, you might not care. You might live your life with, hey, I'm very capable at this, I'm not very capable at that, but I research, I look into things, and I figure it out. So there may be no catalyst. That's possible, right? There isn't like every single thing in the world is your wound. Though there are many, many wounds, and it's almost like there's just imagery like tributaries and bifurcations and divisions and all kinds of stuff of thinking of, oh yeah, what are all the different ways I'm going to see myself. And one of my favorite quotes from Esther is, we all look for an identity. No, we will look for an identity no matter how painful that identity is. So that's a very interesting statement, that we are looking for identities. So
is that in everything we do? Like, so if I'm doing something, am I looking for an identity in that activity? Like I'm doing a good job or a bad job?
Exactly. I'm not saying 100% of the time, by the way. This is only when you require a breakthrough, let's say, or something's going wrong, you'll seek out. It's so interesting when I'm
okay, because you're not feeling safe or secure, and therefore
exactly.
you're getting triggered, and you're looking for an identity. Okay, that makes sense.
You're looking for an identity, no matter how terrible it is. most of us would, of course, there are people out there who are self-realized and people who figured things out. There are,
Sat on a
you know,
cloud.
so you could say we're looking for an identity until we're not, right? But that identity will be painful. Anyone, even if it's positive, even if you have let's say you're professor with 10 degrees, you won a Nobel Prize, and someone intimates that you don't know what you're talking about, and you explode or implode, which is how we began this. There could be an implosion. And it would be, well, do you know how many degrees I have? And do you know how much I've studied this? And you don't know what you're talking about, et cetera, et cetera. So right away, the identity of I am stupid from childhood gets catalyzed, right? So it's, that's kind of technically what's going on. And the thing that we will then do, it's just the dynamic of what goes on. If we're undifferentiated consciousness, everything goes in. Then when it becomes differentiated, it's like those things get trapped in there, right? It's not like we can look at it and go, oh yeah, now I'm old enough to go, I reject that, which is, part of, it's part of some of the kind of new age treatments. Just think positively. Now, I'm not talking about thinking positively to get something, or talking about thinking solely positively about ourselves. That will not necessarily supplant what is going on in the underground.
That could trigger more things.
And
you could trigger yourself by just going, I'm amazing, I'm like all the time.
Well, I can't think of an example now, but
yeah.
if you are, if you're believing in an identity about yourself, it's really easy for someone to throw a stone at your glass house. Your house is fragile because you actually believe something about yourself, which is where I kind of want to get to is, are any of your thoughts about yourself real? Right? And one of the questions you can ask, because we are under the spell of the mind, we believe what's going on up here. Oh, if I could just think better about myself, then I'm going to be better. Well, that's just a spell the mind's telling you. Just telling you this, and it's hocus pocus. It's ridiculous. If that's what you could do, I'll give you a phrase and bye-bye. Go and say that phrase and you're done. But that apparently isn't the way things are in life. I mean, we always, you can see that generally now there aren't so many bookstores, but go online and look up the self-help section, and you're going to see all these 10 easy steps to blah, 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 10 easy steps to, even Dale Carnegie has sold so many books.
Yeah, it's always 7, 10, 11.
But he has sold a lot, and it is effective, but it doesn't mean it's effective to everyone, for everyone. I mean, it's a great technique. So why wouldn't it be effective? Well, because here we come to some fundamentals where if somebody is wounded in a particular way, they're not going to be able to actually take the steps that Dale Carnegie mentions, right? I mean, it's available. So every single person I know who's not succeeding, here, read Dale Carnegie's book.
Yeah, 7 steps to...
I read it. So just apply it.
Yeah.
Oh, but, and here we go into the buts. There are habits and there are rabbits, but there are no yabbits, and I think that oftentimes that people don't realize how much they but things, which is the moment you hear that, we're going to go into a massive defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be a slew of defenses that we have, usually are excuses, explanations, analyses, judgments, shoulds and should nots that come up as a huge plethora of defenses. In Breakthrough, we don't say defense mechanisms, we say the dynamics of defense, because a defense mechanism would be avoidance. A defense mechanism could be denial. All right, that's in our defenses, but what are the dynamics of a defense? And those are usually the explanations, justifications, analyses, excuses. Excuses is a big one. Well, I didn't because this, that, and the other thing. You know, I'm not talking about, you know, you've come late to a meeting and you say,
the
I'm
lights were all
really
red.
sorry,
Yeah.
there was traffic. Okay, so, you know, that's part of taking responsibility. And I'm not blaming the traffic, but I'm saying, okay, so I take full responsibility despite there being traffic, right? So that wouldn't be a trigger. But some people are, you know, let's say late, and now they're embarrassed about going into a group meeting. And that embarrassment boots up the identity, the wound, and all of these defense mechanisms come out. So not only, for example, are they late, but they'll spend 5 minutes taking the group's time, taking the group's attention to explain exactly why they're late and to go into a very dramatic drama queen, whether they're male or female, type of behavior. And you know, that leads to other consequences, right? You're constantly stressed, you're anxious, you stress other people, you get bad reviews at work, and you have no idea why, because you think you're being nice. But I said, I'm sorry. I explained why I'm sorry. I explained every little detail, exactly how many minutes I was in the washroom, exactly how many minutes it took me to get to the door. I told them everything. So this
half an hour.
half an hour of all of the details, and we don't realize, well, you know, you're triggered now. So it might not be being late that's triggered. It could be walking in late. There could be so many different aspects that trigger you. So, you know, without making lists, it's a little bit difficult to talk about things, because usually Breakthrough is about asking questions. So I am
always about questions
and lecturing. So these are things to consider. And when you come on again to ask questions, and we can engage, right? So right now we haven't got this dynamic of engagement going on yet.
Yeah. Anyone want to ask any questions in the chat?
But please do ask questions. And yeah, maybe a good thing for all of you is to think about what the difference between a reaction and overreaction is. We don't need to like look at both of them. We could look at just a reaction for the moment. And if anyone knows what a reaction is it possible to see the chat box? Or
yeah, you just have to.
Oh, that's hilarious. And there's little emojis that say reactions there as well, which is quite funny that we're talking about reactions. So I just want to see the screen.
I want to see where these are now.
So no one really knows. So we're just going to make a little,
yeah.
I'll just write up reactions. So we kind of look at what is a reaction? Because it would be very different from an overreaction and yet appear quite similar. Right? A reaction and an overreaction can look the same. They can very much look the same. Yeah.
So something happens and you have a response.
So a response, we could
emotions
put reaction, response together. Why don't we do that? Let's see. I don't always like to do that. I like to keep response separate, but
okay.
So let's say reaction, response. So what would be a reaction or a response?
Oh, you could get angry.
Well, would anger, sadness, grief, fear, worry, shame, guilt, all these things be part of overreactions as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say so, right?
Yeah.
So it does fit under both titles. So if we put overreaction,
So
or
could you
reaction,
just, like, if you're having a reaction, you may feel angry, but it may just be fleeting and just dissipate.
which would make a reaction
Like
fleeting,
fleeting.
right? Does anyone else have a suggestion as to what a reaction would be?
Um, well, it wouldn't feel as, like, comparing it to an overreaction, it wouldn't feel as big.
And that's what I was pointing out. It
Yeah.
could. It could be really big, but
In
it's
the
still a
moment.
right. So that's what you're getting to. So
Yeah.
just to support you, that would be spontaneous, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Now, there's a problem with spontaneity because if I'm catalyzed into an overreaction, that appears as spontaneous as well. But there is a difference. Because you don't want to get tricky with words here. So
Yeah.
I like this
I
idea of,
don't
yes,
do
it's
words.
spontaneous, I'm going to react. So if the bird came in right now and flew on my head, I'd probably go like that. It's very spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
Or like, let's say the bird comes and flies at my head and I go like that. And I'm overreacting because I start thinking I'm a bad mummy bird
Bird
and
mob.
he's disobedient, and so there would be an overreaction. But the spontaneity that occurred with the movement is very different, and then I could have an overreaction. So
Yeah. So you could react to something and then overreact to it later.
you definitely can. So we do often overreact to our reactions,
Yes.
right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I found in teaching, sometimes I'd be thinking a lot and I'm kind of like react and say, no, 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 no. And or something like noise could be going on and it's just my brain is hearing only the noise and like, God, could you just stop? And it's not polite, it's like, it's just a reaction. And, I'll think later about it and go, oh gosh, how I reacted. But it's a reaction, you know. I
Yeah.
even apologize to the class many times. I'm really sorry I did that earlier. That some people say I didn't even notice.
Notice.
Some
Yeah.
people will say that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I agree with you, actually. There was too much noise. And then, somebody will say, well, you could have done it differently. And that's
Oh.
a whole strange area because if you're reacting, you couldn't have done it differently.
Yeah.
It's a reaction. Right?
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't react, we get enough rest, we're doing well. But I don't know if you've been in venues where, there's cement
Oh, this.
walls and it's the air
Oh no, I
conditioning.
had a rave outside the window once
Oh
when
God,
I was
right.
teaching. I'm like, quiet room, but they were taking an exam next door. I'm like, oh my, I was shouting over it. It was fun. I once used the wrong word when I was teaching. I called something by the wrong technical name, and this woman emailed me 9 months after the class to let me know that I'd made that mistake. And I'm like, you've been thinking about that for 9 months.
And then you don't really know if you said it wrong either.
No, I have no idea.
Because that's a whole other
9 months
uh,
later, I was like, wow.
a whole other issue when it comes to courses is that we don't actually hear what someone said. I listen to a lot of videos 3, 4, 5 times. And I go, wow,
Yeah.
it's like I never listened to it. It's as though I never heard it the first time. So
Yeah.
I don't
I'll
trust.
go back through these conversations that we've had, and I'm like, well, I don't remember that. And like, it's me saying it.
Exactly. Yeah. So
It's fun.
yeah, we don't necessarily hear. That's happened a lot where students will come up to me and say, you said, and I'll go, you're leaving out part of what I said. You've just extracted only a tiny bit and you've forgotten the rest of my
Yeah.
sentence, right? And that'll happen often, like, just this phrase, we will seek an identity, no matter how horrible that identity is. And then we'll often turn around and say, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not looking for a bad identity. Well, no, you're not doing that all the time. It's only when you're seeking an identity. It's only when you're under the spell of the mind. We seem to be, like, let's say someone is saying, oh, I believe I'm worthless. I think it's so awful to be worthless. I need to feel worthy. I can't feel worthless. There's no way that that analysis of themselves is correct. Because if you were actually seeking to be worthy, you would just do it. But we don't, because some other dynamic is going on. And the dynamic that would be going on is, I need to feel worthy because there's something even more horrible out there for me if I think I'm worthy. Then the moment they realize the thought process is, well, it all unravels. Like a skein of wool, right? It just unravels, and all of a sudden they're like not worthy or unworthy. Yep. They're not lovable or unlovable. But
neither identity sits. Yeah.
The idea of thinking I want to be lovable, but I am lovable. No, I want to be lovable, but I am unlovable is most likely when we're dealing with breakthrough in our beliefs and our identities. Completely associated with the need for safety. And you would think it is counterintuitive to think that my need to be unlovable is going to keep me safe.
Yeah, I know I've worked through that one a few times.
Yeah, well, you think of all the negative perceptions you have of yourself. It's keeping you safe from something.
Yeah.
You just don't know exactly how that dynamic is working.
Do we react when we feel unsafe?
It is so unsafe the moment someone triggers an identity. It is so unsafe to us. It feels like we're dying. That's why we get so crazy. And not only crazy, but it's horrible. Now, I don't have this happening to me anymore, necessarily. I mean, where I'm triggered to the point of this is so terrible. I still get triggered, but I don't feel that absolute desperation I used to have. I don't have that absolute desperation of, I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die. And I'd be calling other practitioners up so fast to do breakthroughs. And since
I remember those days.
You remember how crazy I was, right?
No, I remember how crazy I was.
You remember how crazy you were.
Terryann, fix me. Yeah.
But also leading you and everyone else through breakthrough was for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't for you. I don't remember being, remember being selfish enough to say it's all for me. And I remember, yes, I would love to help you get out of this feeling of drowning and like you're dying. Yeah, I want to help you. But it was all for me.
Yeah.
If I didn't figure it out, no, then what's the point? Like, I could get you out of it, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
If I'm not getting out of it, then
I always say you have to work on yourself to help other people.
And that's a really great comment to make at this moment, because that's what breakthrough is. So I know one of the big questions a lot of practitioners ask is, how do I apply this to my practice? Well, quite frankly, you don't. This isn't what we're doing here. This is for you, and it will hence impact your practice, of course. Like your links in belief systems will shift and change, but that's because you did it.
And also, I found it really useful for talking to clients as well.
You begin to recognize their patterns.
You begin to see their patterns and their triggers, and
even a simple thing, noticing that somebody reacted and they're having an overreaction to their reaction, just making that statement often alleviates people. They go, yes, I am. I did have a reaction, and I'm now embarrassed by it. Like, yeah, but you're human, you're going to react.
Yeah.
Wow, that in itself is
Yeah.
enlightening, right? That in itself sheds light on, wow, I'm expecting myself to be this perfect thing, because you're no longer human if you're not going to have a reaction.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not human.
You're a robot.
Okay, that's not going to happen. And it doesn't mean you run around screaming and yelling at everything. That's often people say, yeah, but I would just do this and that. No, you wouldn't. You only think you would because you're triggered. But when you're not triggered, when there's a reaction, you can clearly go through the reaction and take full responsibility for it. Full responsibility. And if somebody doesn't accept your apology and taking responsibility, that's not about you.
Yeah.
That's about them. Taking things personally is something I like to look at too, is that we, with all of this stuff going on in our heads, right? We are completely engaged with our thoughts, right? We're attached to them, we're involved with them, right? So the moment we're all involved with this, we can't see what's right in front of us, right? So here's an object in front of us, boom, you can't see it. So let's pretend this is Joe. You're looking at Joe, and Joe is not reacting to what you're saying. And you start saying, we call this projection, but I like to dance it out. You look at Joe and you go, well, Joe has a deadpan face. Joe's not really looking at me. Joe's not reacting. Joe's not smiling. Joe's not animated. There must be something wrong with me. He must think I'm stupid. Joe must think, and we go on and on and on, making it up. We make it up in our heads.
Yeah, classic one about this is relationships. So, like, someone said, this guy said this to me, so that must mean. And we create this whole story of like, oh, he must love me because he did this. And then...
Yeah, we don't listen to what people say because we're completely filtered by who we think we are and all of these thoughts that we are completely possessed by. If you've heard of the term ideological possession, well, we're going through that all day long. We're ideologically possessed. We have all of these thoughts that we think are good or bad or whatever we think about ourselves. And we behave in accordance to sometimes to those thoughts, right? And we think we're behaving well and we're really behaving badly. Or we think we're behaving badly and we're actually behaving well. Why? Because we're living inside of our heads and we're involved with the thoughts. I've seen people think, oh my God, my behavior was so terrible. And, I feel like everybody knows how mean I am. And you're just looking and no, nobody knows. Everyone thinks you're quite pleasant and polite and kind and sweet. And really, that's what people think about me? Because you're living in your mind thinking all of these thoughts. So again, why would we do that? Well, on some level, well, on any level, we're looking for safety. So having all those thoughts, is not keeping you safe because you're hurting yourself. But on another level, it's keeping you safe from seeing the identity you don't want to live into, whether it's a positive one or a negative one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we think it's going to be too painful.
We think, well, the pain is already there and we're already experiencing pain. And then we think that we are avoiding pain and we're not. I mean, that's a clear question that we ask usually when someone says, yeah, but it's too painful for me to see what's going on. And do you know that to be true? Or are you experiencing pain now? Well, I'm experiencing pain now. So you can either continue experiencing the pain that you're in now, or you can free yourself. Which one is it? You get to choose. I mean, that's ultimately Well, that's the way, I like to see it, or the way I've experienced breakthrough is I'm trapped in my mind, in my thoughts, in who I think I am. And I know I'm none of those things. I am a being having an experience. I am that I am. I am. That's it.
Yeah.
But when I'm suffering, I think I am something. And that's when we're looking at that idea of we're going to look for an identity no matter how painful that identity is. First of all, it's painful to limit the I am to an identity. We give lip service to beingness. We give lip service to I am. People often say, I just want to be me. And I think, no, I don't want to be me. No, that again is another identity that I don't want to have. I just want to be, not
So is
me.
the ego getting involved here as well?
Well, we don't have to get into it actually, because as soon as you have an identity, that's all you need to know of pain. Then you could bring up all of the Freudian ego, id, superego, but it's not really essential, right? We know that there's the ego that the ego can't go away. It's the I. So even if I am and I don't have a label for myself, right? I still say I, because there is a being here. There's a physical being having an experience. I'm not going to walk around and say, I am that I am is having an experience, right? We're still going to live in the world and experience it. I'm still going to say, well, I am a body talk practitioner. But if you say, Terryann, you're a stupid, idiotic body talk practitioner, I'll go, oh, whatever.
Okay, well,
it has nothing to
there's
do.
There's no charge. I can't throw anything in.
There's no charge whatsoever.
Apart from the charge for the session.
My head went the same direction.
Oh, okay.
I'm still charging you, even though you think I'm not. But if somebody says, you're stupid. So first, before I do that, just for all of you listening, here's a question you can ask yourself. If you know the truth, would you defend it? So if somebody says you're stupid, Terryann, nothing happens because there's nothing to defend, because I have no doubt that I'm not stupid, but I'm not smart either. I have no doubt that I'm neither of these things.
Yeah.
I have a certain amount of knowledge, but I don't have all of it. I've done a lot of work in breakthrough, but I don't know everything. So you could say whatever I know is stupid. I'm going to probably agree with you and go, yeah, because, that's already old. Everything I learned from today all the way back to the beginning of time. It's like, because right now it's all a brand new tableau to work with. So if I'm attached, Krishnamurti wrote a book, Freedom from the Known, and he posits that he doesn't talk about it as triggers, but it's so obvious that the knowledge or data or information that you've downloaded into this thing called the brain, you think is important. You'll think that everything you know is something that's really important to you, that it keeps you safe, that it determines who you are, et cetera, et cetera. And he wrote it's a little small book, but it's wonderful. Freedom from the known, freeing yourself from what you know. And that is a really interesting process. Sure, you know some things, but if it's not useful to you, what do you need it for?
Yeah.
If it's not useful to me, if it's something I can keep using, if I've got a hammer and, it still works, I have it around so I can hammer my nails. If the hammer breaks, time for it to go. Or use it as a doorstop. It would have a different function. So everything might have some use somewhere, but I don't need to keep it in the forefront
Yeah,
as
you
though
don't
it's,
need to carry your hammer around all day just in case someone
no, you
needs.
don't. No, I don't. Right. So, so even that, and there are so many different systems like Ho'oponopono. Dr. Hugh Lin talks about
Mm.
data. We just have all this data. It's just data. It's just dust. And his technique is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, to stop all the triggers. And you know, to a certain extent, it works to a certain extent. I mean, he's super committed, obviously, and I don't know if he's gotten rid of all of his data, but or not that you can get rid of anything, but whatever he would consider the outcome or taken responsibility, let's say, for all the data. You know, in breakthrough, we say it's a regressive process to go through all of this stuff that we think we know, to come back to the I am. So you know, the idea of like one of my favorite stories is this course I went to. I was really young, and you know, I sat down in the class, and of course, when I was younger, I was a little bit more. I'd blurt things out. Later on, I became very quiet. But you know, the woman started by saying, "This is a weekend where we're going to make you better. We're
Wow.
going to do things that will make you a better person, a better human, blah blah blah." And I just got up. I was completely triggered, catalyzed. I stood up and I said, "But that's the problem. That's what's happening all the time. We're always told we're going to be better. I don't want to be better. I just want to be." And it took me, I think I was about 15, 16 at the time. It took me all the way till 45 years old to meet Esther, who said, "You're perfect already, warts and all." And I was like, okay, thank God. You know, I finally ran into someone who does the same thing. All right, we're already perfect, warts and all. We've just forgotten under all this crap. And how do we get there? How do we get through all of this? And it was just amazing to watch that she had put together, you know, these 7 questions. I mean, I'm obviously throwing you from pillar to post a little bit to see different ideas and explore them, because it's I think a never-ending process of self-exploration,
Yeah.
and just discovering who we are. And it's a way to really to get through things, not just a panacea, not just a little what's a tampon, like a Band-Aid or something, right? To put a little swab on it and say, okay, if I do this over and over again, everything's going to be all right if I just
Yeah.
think positively. We know these things don't work.
They're
Don't
helpful,
work
but they don't fix everything.
well. And breakthrough doesn't fix anything; it just sheds
No.
light,
Yeah.
right? That's why we say it's a shift in perspective on conflict, because your initial view, well, you're going to see it in many different ways, but for one perspective is, okay, so I have a conflict. Well, how do I look at that conflict? Is it something I want to get rid of? Or do I want to explore my perspectives on everything and then see how that conflict unravels? Right? So the moment I shift my perspective on a particular conflict, well, the conflict disappears. It vanishes. And think on that for a moment. You shift perspective on a conflict. So the easiest way I could explain this to you is you say good morning to your neighbor every day. Then one day you run out of your house, you say excuse me and push your neighbor out of the way and you run. And your neighbor uses a horrible word to describe you. And then finds out the next day that your child has been in an accident. What happens to you? First you're thinking your neighbor's horrible, he's done a terrible thing, he's awful. And the minute you learn, oh, okay,
Yeah.
right.
There was something going
Ah,
on.
something was going on. It's how quick we are to judge. You know, somebody says good morning every day and is very polite, but does this thing that catalyzes you. So that's one way where you have a shift in perspective on a conflict. You're mad at your neighbor. You're upset with them. You've been thinking for 24 hours since the night before how terrible they were, and that must be their real personality. You've gone through the gamut. And all of a sudden, your neighbor comes up to you, says, I apologize, but my child was in an accident. I was rushing so I could pick, go to the hospital and meet up. Didn't want her to be alone.
Mm.
Right away, you calm down.
It dissipates, yeah.
So we don't, so I've done that, right? So somebody's rude to me and right away my head snaps, you get into this. And, in the old days, pre, let's say 40s, I would sit around and just try every possible technique I'd learned up to my 40s on how to calm myself down and, what's going on. I had a technique too where I would, whatever I accused someone of, I would say that's myself, and I would do a few unravelings, not the way I did with Breakthrough. And working with someone, having someone who was willing to be honest and be the mirror in which I had to be honest and not deceive myself, because we deceive ourselves if we think that we can see our own defenses. They're very tricky, right? So when I was 15, I used to ask my best friend, I'm going to tell you a story. Could you tell me where I'm lying? And it was always so frustrating because she would say, no, you're justified.
Yeah.
But if I was justified, I wouldn't feel bad about this. And, it took a long exploration. I used friends as sounding boards to be honest with me, and they weren't. They were usually honest about things that were, hurting me or damaging me or, which, okay, fine, but that wasn't completely helpful to me. What would have been helpful if somebody could see it, and of course meeting Esther and having this opportunity to be honest. And yeah, I understand that a lot of people are afraid of that, but I can tell you that honesty just gives you all of the freedom you could possibly imagine. It's the contracting down of all your defenses that are holding your identity together, that you think is keeping you safe, or you don't even know it yet, but you're a little kid. So remember, in the period of time where you had to stay home with your parents, you didn't have your own agency. The parent is the one ruling the roost. You couldn't get up when you were 4 years old, take a little suitcase or a little mini suitcase and walk out and rent an apartment and go get a job. You can't even reach the sink. So, that's not viable.
Practical.
But once you leave your father's house, and I mean that metaphorically, leaving the father's house, once you leave the father's house, now it is time to grow up, become an adult, and take responsibility for what you heretofore could not. That's huge, right? That's very difficult for people. They'll leave and they will continue using the same standards that they disagreed with their parents, and use them on themselves now. Well, my parents never let me do this. My parents never loved me. My parents, well, what?
My parents never gave me vegetables.
My parents never gave me vegetables. Well, now that you have become the adult, do it. But we don't. Why don't we? I mean, it should be simple. If our brains know what's going on and can analyze something, well, then it should be simple, but it is not, is it? Otherwise the healing techniques that we could use out there is, well, get the heck up, grow the hell up, and go out there. And there was somebody who said, when we become adults, we can now raise ourselves in the ways that we believe our parents should have. So just do that. But why don't we? That can drive you mental. it can drive you out of your mind because you can't figure out why the heck you're operating and behaving in ways that are completely out of your control. And I'm not talking about a reaction. A reaction is one thing, but an overreaction when your behaviors are these continual. So if we look at fleeting, well, overreactions are usually not fleeting. They're not spontaneous. They're usually something that is preconditioned. Well, of course it is, right? You've catalyzed this chain, to use a metaphor, a chain of events that are pre-existing in you. They've been catalyzed and now they start operating and you have no control, none. You may have, as a child, used those defenses and the identity to retain control. So let's say you are a gorgeous child and your mother is absolutely gorgeous, but your mother is jealous of your beauty. She puts you down. She says that, look at you, you're not wearing the right amount of makeup. Why didn't you cut your hair like this? And your mother is actually, this can happen. It's happened. I've seen it happen to a lot of people.
You should go on a diet.
Well, that's a little different, right? That
No,
might help you, right? You should go on a diet, could be to help you. We want you to be healthy and happy. That's a little different, but that will catalyze because you think you should be loved no matter what, right? That's another thing. But when you think somebody's saying you should go on a diet, they're obviously noting that something's not going well in your life. And yes, you can have a whole bunch of stuff, but let's stay with this one example.
Right.
So if you have, because this is an evil scenario I'm telling you of,
Yeah.
right? It's not very nice, where a mother could be jealous of the child, and that jealousy would be part of what would cause the child to keep safe, so she would try to be unattractive. So she wouldn't incur her mother's wrath. Maybe the child would cut their hair strangely. Maybe the child would make sure they look ugly, do everything they can to look ugly. Maybe they would gain weight so that the mother won't hurt them or attack them. So if the more the child looks beautiful, the more the child is attacked, or the love is withdrawn, so the child tries to look ugly, so they get love. Probably a, catch-22, because anyway, I won't go into that, but it probably wouldn't work out very well. And now the child leaves, they're an adult, they've got their own lives, and they continue to have the same experience. When now they could just say, well, my mother was jealous of me, so I made myself unattractive to stay safe as a child, and now I'm just going to allow my beauty to unfold. That's not what we do. It's not what we do, because we are fully engaged with thoughts, and it would be nice if you could just say to people, hey, grow up. Growing up would entail, doing BreakThrough. I think BreakThrough is for grownups. I don't think children,
That's
I mean adult children. I've met adult children who will not be honest and will not actually sit down to follow the directions of the work. They'll start very tantrumy like behavior. It's very interesting because it does trigger them. But I often think, no, you have to want to be an adult, or you have to want to be honest. You can't really do BreakThrough if you don't want to be honest with yourself. And, honesty is, do you want freedom or not? That's my question. Do you want to be free or not? If you don't want to be free, go on, keep going, do the same thing over and over again. If you want freedom, well, this is the work to do.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to do a little bit on that list, and then I will stop chewing your ears off, because I think that was a lot of
yeah, I think we covered
stuff.
quite a lot today.
Well, like we were saying before, so we have fleeting and spontaneous, so an overreaction. Just to make it simple, there's a lot more going on, would be preconditioned, right? So I think that will, help us see, because in a way, so you have this spontaneity that occurs and it goes away, whereas the overreaction is preconditioned, and it has the wound, right? The wound is there. There's stuff behind it, whereas a reaction is just ouch kind of thing. Ow.
Yeah. It
Or
doesn't have all the layers to it.
yeah, or it
Yeah.
stops screaming, or whatever it is. But somebody pushes you, you're like, oh, right, that's it. But the overreaction is preconditioned. So let's say somebody pushes me, I go, hey, dude, what are you doing? And then I overreact to the way I said it, because my preconditioning would say, oh my God, you made a terrible face. You talked too loudly. You
were rude.
You were sarcastic. And that would be what is related to the wound, right? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that is going on in the overreaction. So both would have emotions, right? Because if you pushed me and I'm about to fall over, there'd certainly be some fear there, right? Like, oh, be afraid. And then you could have someone who is triggered, and it's all about the wound, it's all about not seeing the wound, it's all about safety. So inevitably there's going to be fear. There's the other emotions as well. So emotions would go in both of them. Do you guys, since you've been listening for such a long time, would you have like something else you'd like to add to reactions versus overreactions?
Or any questions?
Okay, they're very quiet. So,
Okay.
right.
They're busy overreacting to having to do something.
She's just joking. Hopefully
you know my sense of humor.
And hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. That's right. So, well, since there are no other questions, I think maybe we could just stop it there.
Yeah.
And let people know that we might be changing the course.
We might be changing the course dates.
And I'd just like to review what we do in the course. So I don't lecture like this during the course. I just give a little talk about who I am, Terryann, blah, 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 and a little bit of a breakthrough, tiny, tiny little bit, but I jump right into questions. So we begin immediately an exploration. So we're exploring conflict, then we explore our defenses, we explore our coping mechanisms, and through all of that, you begin to see how your mind works, how your overreactions work. We would do a much longer list on reactions and overreactions. So we do all of this exploration on the evening talk. So it's not a lecture, it's actual work that we're doing that evening. So I usually like that people attend. I mean, obviously, if you can't, that's up to you. We'll do another revision in the morning, but I've done that evening talk thousands of times by now, and I learn something new each time I do it. It's exciting, it's fun. It's not just me getting up and having a preset talk. It is really this really fun exploration. And I'm not saying some people cry, some people get angry, some people get super excited, some people show their fears. It's really a very interesting evening. And the next morning we do a little revision again, and a few concepts that we don't cover in the evening talk, like emotions and sympathy and empathy and that kind of thing. And then we begin immediately with doing what we call steps. So a breakthrough session is called steps. So we do a steps process. And we start right away. We do them right away, maybe after I answer a few questions about protocol. Then we do more all afternoon until every single person in the class has steps. I lead. I try to lead as many as possible, but if once it's a bigger class, we need enough time for everyone to go into groups. And I, of course, come around, and eventually I'm the one who really gets the moment of the breakthrough, because most people, I mean, it can happen if you've got a monitor, they know how to do it, but I check everything. And and everyone has the steps. It's all very experiential. That's what this is about. It's basically a weekend of treatment, and every steps that you observe is your steps.
Yeah.
So you could receive steps, but I have seen people have a bigger reaction to someone else's steps than their own. Fascinating, right? So that
Yeah, you
doesn't
just
always
sit there
happen.
going, oh, that's my steps. Oh, that's my steps. Oh, oh, yeah.
Exactly.
There's no coincidence who's there.
It is a powerful week, and I always find by Sunday night, people don't want to leave. I'm always surprised because the first I find it just a little,
They haven't walked out on Friday evening. They're there.
yeah. Anecdotally, Friday it's like I'm too afraid. I don't know if I want to do this. It's going to be so difficult and and then by Sunday it's like, oh my God, I don't want to go. I want to stay here. Let's do more. It's
Yeah. So we have a Monday where you can come back and practice.
Yes, we do have a Monday practical.
But yeah, it really is a gift to yourself. It's freedom.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is just that's the every I think instructor finds their way of looking at it, but from the get-go, it's all about I want to be free of this stuff, this crazy making stuff. Or to me, it was anytime I was triggered, because I'm such a drama queen, as you can all tell, this melodramatic drama queen here. Everything was like a life and death circumstance. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So I just wanted that gone. And yeah, it's interesting to see the drama queen die. It doesn't mean I'm not a Greek with passion and fingers moving, but the drama queen that was there, I will make a dramatic story if I can, but even those have toned down that I find them a little boring now.
I was going to say.
Yeah, there are other times I think I'm more boring. I used to think I was so, people would be captivated, and now I feel like maybe you're really boring now.
I need to turn the drama up.
No, I don't think so, but we'll see what I transform into. There's a constant metamorphosis going on, and I feel like the last years, I've kind of, since I broke the spell of engaging with my mind, there's been a huge metamorphosis. And of course, living with not knowing who I am, that is now transformed to I am just a being having an experience. Well, there's no drama, right?
Yeah.
And even when I'm sitting with drama, it's just exhausting, completely exhausting. Whereas before I'd be like seeking it out. Yeah. Fascinating. It was
really
it was an addiction to seek out the drama. I would seek out anybody who needed that kind of help. Now when the drama comes up, no, stop that drama. There are other things, greater things in heaven and earth, Horatio. Yes. Than the big dramas in your head, right?
Drama-free zone. Be your new catch line. Yeah.
Well, I don't think this is actually a drama-free zone. But, you do start the weekend with, there's always a few people trying to take over with their dramatic story. What is no longer a drama for me is that I can tell them to stop, whereas before I couldn't.
Yeah.
I would feel overwhelmed by their drama, and how do I get the drama anchored? And now it's like, no, all right, let's go quiet. That's not the work we're doing here. It's not therapy. We're not. And oh, by the way, having brought this up now, one thing that's really important to know is that we're a bunch of stories. That's so that's the drama, right? If I think I'm my story, blah, 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 I was late. Blah, 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 this happened on the way to the, on the way to the opera. Blah, 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 right? It's just this huge story that we're telling. And when you disengage or disinvolve with the mind, you've disinvolved with the stories. I can tell a story. I can tell a story about my life, about the past. I could even make it dramatic, but I'm not involved. And it's not like it happened to someone else. It's not that weird either. It did happen to me, but it's just no longer, it's only necessary if it requires, if something requires an anecdotal story to support an idea.
Yeah.
to help someone have a visual of what we're talking about.
Cool.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
even my whole history doesn't matter anymore. It's really interesting. Even as I'm telling you all this, it's like, really? Is this? And it really is happening to me. I know I'm still in a metamorphosis process or a transformative process where all of this has changed for me, but it's really quite unbelievable that, just talking this way a few years ago, I would have just said, oh yeah, right, I've got a ton of stories. I'm involved in all of them. And it's not long ago. It'll be 2 years this summer, I think, where just all of a sudden I saw that, oh my God, I believed my mind, and it just broke. The spell broke, and my mind can talk, and I'm just like, can you just be quiet, please? Because I'm listening to music. Thanks. I know you're doing your job, but thanks. Not that I don't even say that anymore. I said that for quite a few years, and that obviously was part of breaking the spell, but I don't even say that. I can hear thoughts, of course, that the mind has thoughts in it. I can hear them. I just not involved in them.
Yeah. Beautiful.
It's really, I don't even know if it's possible to explain that, but it's just because it's so recent. Yeah. And I really haven't taught that many breakthroughs since this occurred. So it's kind of interesting.
We'll be in for a treat when you come.
You'll be in for a treat, seeing a different, a different human. Yeah.
Woo.
Not that you feel that different, but there's definitely.
No.
What I like is that there isn't all that drama or upset or, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And I like, I mean, I don't know, Lavinia, if you know, but Christine, you know me. You know me. You've seen my, how, I think Christine could bear witness to, that I'm not so
She's
dramatic.
That's the summary.
Well, I don't even know how to explain it, because you could still see me, tell the story that way, but I'm sure you would feel less emotional involvement in there, less mental involvement. Like, I really love the idea about not caring. Nothing matters, right? All of that kind of breaks the spell, because the only thing, I mean, if someone dies, it's sad, but there isn't a mental association. Yes, you'll cry, you'll feel bad, you'll have that mourning period. We're just humans, we do those things. That doesn't obviously change, but it isn't like, oh my God. Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah,
very different. All right,
so we'll let you go.
All right,
thank you for tonight. It's been
thank you guys for being here, lady.
Yeah, thank you for holding the energy for us. Thanks to those that watched the replay. And we're going to do another talk on Wednesday the 20th of May at 8 p.m. UK time. So if you want to put that date in your diary, we will be on Zoom having some more fun without the drama. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy this call. Any questions, please drop me an email, info@eloiseansell.com, and hopefully we'll look forward to getting Terryann to the UK at some point in 2020. News will follow at some point when we know what's going on. So take care of yourselves. Thanks to Terryann. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
And we will
thank you,
Eloise,
for organizing. Bye.
Bye.